The bell above the thrift shop door jingled faintly as Emma pushed it open. The air inside was stale, carrying the scent of dust, mothballs, and something faintly metallic that she couldn't quite place. Sunlight struggled through the dirty windows, painting long stripes across the cramped aisles. Emma loved places like this, stores where forgotten objects lingered, waiting for someone to care about them again. Most kids her age wanted new phones or trendy sneakers, but Emma preferred things with history, things that whispered of lives before her own. Her mother followed behind, distracted, scrolling through her phone. 15 minutes, Em. I still have to pick up groceries. Emma barely nodded. She was already drifting deeper into the shop, her eyes skimming over chipped teacups, stacks of old records, yellowed books with broken spines. She brushed her fingers along a shelf, trailing them over ceramic cats, a rusted lantern, and then she stopped. On the highest shelf, half hidden in shadow, sat a doll. It wore a faded cream-colored dress trimmed with lace, delicate but frayed at the edges. Its porcelain face was pale, cracked faintly along one cheek, like the aftermath of a forgotten fall. Dark curls framed its face, still glossy despite the years, but it was the eyes that froze Emma in place, glass eyes, too bright, catching the dim light in a way that felt almost alive. She reached up and lifted it carefully. The doll was heavier than she expected, its head tilting to one side as if curious. Emma felt a small chill crawl along her skin. "Wow," she whispered. "You're beautiful." From behind the counter, the shopkeeper stirred. She was an elderly woman with sharp cheekbones and skin like parchment. She had been sitting silently, but now her gaze fixed on Emma with unsettling intensity. "You found Clara," the woman said, her voice raspy. Emma blinked. "Clara? That's her name," the shopkeeper replied. "At least, that's what she was called before. The word lingered in the air, heavy and strange. Emma hesitated, clutching the doll tighter. "How much?" The woman's lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment it seemed she might refuse. Then she sighed and said, $10. But she leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Some things carry their past with them, child. Not everything that looks sweet is safe to keep." Emma felt her heart skip, but she forced a smile. Adults always tried to spook kids with silly warnings. "I'll take her," she said quickly, pulling the crumpled bills from her pocket. The woman's hand lingered on the doll as Emma passed it over. Her fingers trembled faintly. "Be careful. Dolls remember more than you think." Emma almost laughed, but the sound died in her throat. For just a fraction of a second, she thought she saw the doll's eyes shift just slightly, as if following the old woman's hand. Her mother appeared at her side, impatient. "Got what you wanted? Good. Let's go." Emma nodded, cradling Clara in her arms. As she left the shop, the bell jingled again, the sound sharper this time, almost like a warning. Outside, the afternoon sun should have been comforting, but Emma couldn't shake the feeling that she had just stepped out with more than a doll. She glanced down at Clara. The doll's cracked porcelain lips seemed to curl into the faintest smile. The drive home was quiet. Emma sat in the back seat, cradling the doll on her lap like a fragile treasure. The late afternoon sun flickered through the trees as they passed, casting shadows that slid over Clara's pale porcelain face. Every time the light shifted, it seemed like the doll's expression changed slightly. Now serene, now curious, now faintly amused. Emma shook the thought away. It was just light and shadow, nothing more. When they arrived, she carried Clara into her room, carefully placing the doll on the wooden chair by her desk. Her bedroom was cozy, lined with shelves of books and trinkets from her other thrift shop adventures. But as she stepped back to look, she realized Clara seemed out of place here, too old, too solemn, too watchful. Still, she smiled to herself. "This is your spot," she whispered. "You'll be safe here." That evening, Emma's mom knocked on her door. "Lights out by 10, honey. Big day tomorrow." Emma was already in her pajamas, tucked under the blanket. Okay, Mom. Her mom's eyes drifted to the doll. Creepy thing, she muttered under her breath. Don't let it give you nightmares. Emma laughed nervously. She's not creepy, she's vintage. Her mother raised an eyebrow but said nothing more. She closed the door, leaving Emma alone with Clara. The room was quiet, except for the ticking of the clock and the occasional whisper of wind against the window. Emma's eyelids grew heavy, and soon she drifted into sleep. She didn't know how long she had been out when the sound woke her. Click, click, click. Emma's eyes snapped open. The room was dark, the only light a faint glow from the street lamp outside. She listened, heart pounding. Click, click. It was the sound of something hard striking wood, like small porcelain feet tapping against the floor. Emma sat up slowly, her eyes searching the darkness. The chair by her desk loomed in the corner, empty. Her stomach dropped. Clara was gone. Emma froze, barely breathing. She scanned the room frantically until her gaze caught on the edge of her bed. The doll was sitting there, right beside her. Her heart thudded violently in her chest. She remembered putting Clara on the chair. She was sure of it. She hadn't dreamed that, had she? With trembling hands, Emma reached out and picked up the doll, placing it back on the chair across the room. She whispered to herself, I must have moved her. I probably forgot. But she didn't believe it. Not really. She lay back down, pulling the blanket to her chin, eyes fixed on the doll across the room. Minutes passed. The clock ticked. Eventually, exhaustion overtook fear, and her eyes slipped closed again. A soft thud woke her the second time. Emma's eyes darted to the chair, empty again. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned her head. Clara was on the floor this time, lying face down, her porcelain fingers stretched toward the bed. Emma's pulse hammered in her ears. Stop it, she whispered hoarsely, unsure if she was speaking to herself or the doll. Just stop. She didn't dare move her again. She pulled the blanket over her head, shutting out the sight. But under the thick fabric, in the muffled dark, she swore she heard it. A faint, high-pitched giggle, childlike, delicate, right beside her ear. Emma didn't sleep again that night. She lay stiff beneath her blanket, listening to the silence, waiting for morning. When the sun finally rose, her mother knocked on the door. Breakfast, Em. Emma peeled the blanket away and forced herself to look. The doll was back in the chair, sitting perfectly upright, hands folded neatly in her lap, as if she had never moved at all. But Emma noticed something new. On the wooden desk beneath Clara's porcelain hand were faint scratches, tiny lines, like the marks of fingernails dragged across the surface. And when Emma leaned closer, she realized the scratches spelled something. 3 crooked letters. EMM. Emma didn't mention the scratches at breakfast. She couldn't. Her mom would just laugh it off, or worse, take Clara away. And for reasons Emma couldn't explain, she wasn't ready for that. Instead, she pushed her cereal around her bowl and pretended everything was fine, though her eyes kept flicking toward the hallway where her room waited. All through school, Emma's mind wandered. The image of Clara sitting in the chair, porcelain face blank and pale, wouldn't leave her. Nor would the memory of the faint giggle, soft as breath against her ear. By the time she returned home, her nerves were frayed. She half expected to find the doll waiting at the front door, but the house was quiet. Upstairs, her bedroom door stood ajar. She had closed it that morning. She was sure she had. Emma pushed the door open slowly. Clara sat on the chair by the desk, exactly where Emma had left her. The faint scratches on the wood remained cruel and jagged. EMM. Emma's skin prickled. She forced herself closer. There was something else now, new lines beneath the first. Another letter scratched in overnight. An A. Her name. Emma staggered back, heart hammering. That night she tried something new. She placed Clara in the closet, shutting the door tight, burying the doll beneath a pile of clothes and boxes. There, she whispered. Stay put. The closet door rattled faintly as she stepped away. When she pressed her ear against it, there was only silence. Emma crawled into bed, clutching a flashlight like a lifeline. Sleep came in shallow bursts, broken by the faint creak of floorboards, the sigh of shifting walls. At some point in the night, she dreamed at least. She thought it was a dream. She stood in her room, moonlight pouring through the window. Clara was sitting on the desk now, not the closet, her tiny porcelain hands drumming a slow rhythm on the wood. Click, click, click. Emma tried to move, but her body wouldn't respond. She was frozen, trapped in place. The doll's head tilted toward her, its painted lips parted. Emma. The voice was faint, like air passing through a crack, but it was enough to send a shudder down her spine. Clara raised one delicate hand and pointed at the mirror across the room. Emma's gaze followed. In the reflection, she saw herself standing there, wide-eyed and trembling. But there was something wrong. Her reflection wasn't frozen. It was smiling. Emma jolted awake, gasping, the flashlight clattering to the floor. The room was dark again, but her heart seized when she saw the closet door. It was open. Clothes and boxes were shoved aside, scattered across the floor, and Clara was back on the chair, sitting exactly as before. Only this time, her porcelain lips weren't quite shut. They seemed parted, ever so slightly, as if she'd been caught mid-whisper. The next morning, Emma made up her mind. She had to know where Clara came from. Her mom was too busy to notice Emma slipping out with the doll tucked in her backpack. The thrift shop wasn't far, and its crooked sign creaked in the breeze as she pushed open the door. The same bell jingled overhead. The old shopkeeper looked up from his stool behind the counter. His expression shifted the moment he saw what Emma carried. "You still have it," he muttered, almost to himself. Emma pulled Clara out, setting the doll on the counter. "What's wrong with her?" The man leaned back, shaking his head. "Nothing's wrong. But you should have listened." "I don't understand," Emma said. "Why warn me? What's so special about this doll?" For a moment the man was silent. His eyes lingered on Clara, as if the doll might blink at any moment. Finally, he sighed. "They called her Clara once. A girl from this very town had her, long ago, 80 years or more. That girl, she died suddenly. No one ever said how, but some whispered she wasn't ready to go, that her spirit lingered." Emma felt her stomach twist. The man's voice dropped to a whisper. "And the doll was the only thing left in her room when they found her." He glanced nervously at the shelves. Families passed it around, tried to keep it locked away, sold it when they could. But it always found its way back here. Always. Emma looked down at Clara. The doll's glass eyes caught the dusty light, gleaming as though amused. That night, Emma dreamed again. She stood in a long hallway lined with faded wallpaper. At the end of it was a girl small, maybe her age, in a frilled white dress. Her curls bounced as she tilted her head. The girl's face was pale, almost too pale, her eyes wide and dark. "Clara," Emma whispered. The girl's lips curved. "Number, you're Clara." Before Emma could move, the girl reached out her hand. Cold fingers brushed her cheek. Emma woke with a strangled gasp, clutching her blanket. The room was silent except for the faint scrape of porcelain against wood. Slowly, she turned. The doll was no longer on the chair. It was perched on the edge of her bed, facing her, tiny hands resting in its lap. Emma told herself it was just her imagination. But the next morning, when she dressed for school, she noticed something in the mirror. At first, she thought it was just her reflection. But behind her shoulder, faint and blurred, was another face. A girl's face. She spun around. No one was there. Only Clara, sitting on the desk, smiling. Emma didn't sleep the next night. She couldn't close. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the girl in white, her pale face and hollow smile whispering, "You're Clara now." The doll sat on the desk, porcelain skin catching the moonlight. Emma swore she saw its chest rise and fall, as though it were breathing. tried to fight it. She shoved Clara into a drawer, locked it tight, even piled books on top. But sometime in the night, Emma woke to the sound of scratching again. She turned on her flashlight. The drawer hung open. The books had fallen to the floor. And Clara sat on her pillow, inches from her face. By morning, Emma was pale and trembling. At school, her friends noticed she was distracted, her eyes distant, her movements sluggish. "Are you okay?" one asked. Emma opened her mouth to reply, but what came out was not her voice. It was a child's giggle, high-pitched, wrong. Her friends laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke. But Emma knew better. She could feel Clara's presence pressing against her thoughts, like fingers clawing at the inside of her skull. That night, Emma decided it had to end. She took Clara to the backyard, dug a hole, and placed the doll inside. "You're not welcome here," Emma whispered, shoving dirt over porcelain skin. "Stay buried." She pressed the soil down, her hands shaking. For the first time in days, she felt a flicker of relief. But when she turned to go inside, a faint giggle rose behind her. Emma froze. Slowly, she looked back. The mound of dirt shifted. Cracks spread through the soil. And then, with a terrible, deliberate slowness, Clara's porcelain hand pushed free. Emma screamed, stumbling backward. She ran into the house, slamming the door, locking every bolt. But when she reached her bedroom, her blood ran cold. Clara was already there, sitting neatly on the chair. Dirt clung to her dress, streaked across her perfect porcelain face. The scratches on the desk had changed. No longer just Emma. Now they read, Clara. The following morning, Emma's mother knocked on her door. "Sweetie, time for school." No answer. She opened the door and peeked inside. Emma sat at the desk, perfectly still, hands folded in her lap. "Emma," her mom asked. Slowly, her daughter turned. Her face was pale, her lips curled into a strange smile. On the desk beside her sat the antique doll, glass eyes gleaming, two identical smiles, side by side. Epilogue. Weeks later, the thrift shop's bell jingled once again. A boy wandered in, drawn to the shelves of old treasures. His eyes fell on a doll sitting on the counter, porcelain skin, frilled dress, wide glass eyes. The shopkeeper glanced up, startled. "I wouldn't touch that if I were you." But the boy was already reaching out, smiling.